have this particular engagement, which as Galdino and Michelle has mentioned, is an expansion of this idea of how do we bring people together and try to leverage the collective intelligence, specifically on questions around security and intelligence, policing and law enforcement. I'm really excited to be able to do some work with International Police Organization and have a little bit of work also with Ministry of Defense in the UK, and really think that there's more opportunity for, of course, long-term thinking, foresight approach to be brought in. So we've had a few sessions, really been global in scope. I think we've covered maybe 5 continents, if that's correct. So it's really been a nice way to, again, bring a different kind of conversation. We've had people inside organizations, people outside, and it's really been an interesting mix. And so we're really excited again about the opportunity to see and bring more voices into that, and hopefully have a chance to be able to do that. My background is in futures. I went through the Hawaii Futures Program, and also have a chance to work with different groups. I have a professorship currently in Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan. I didn't know about the latter, but found out about that very recently. So yeah, really excited to be here with everyone and looking forward to the conversation.
So Marcy, would you like to introduce yourself as well?
Hi, thank you. So I'm working in futures and foresight, and more specifically in horizon scanning. And my focus area in particular is transnational crime, justice and security. And echoing what John said, it's really exciting to get people involved in this discussion and start looking at futures in this particular area. So super topical, really excited to get the conversation going. So thank you all for being here.
So without further ado, I would like to, so right now we are 37 people, so it would be very hard to have like everybody introduce themselves. We'd be done by the end of the session with the introductions. But I would like to start before we can jump into the exercise, I would just like you to think for a second, like, what did you do today? What did you do today that could be a crime somewhere? Now, like nowadays, if you were in a different country, you did something today that would be a crime.
Like chewing gum or
like chewing gum is a classic. I asked this question to a friend the other day and he was like, yeah, kissing my wife, like because he did it on public. You can share it in the chat. I rode my bike as a woman. Oh, women can ride bikes some places. That one is new. Voting, yeah. Oh, really? Like honking is a crime? Yeah, that's new. I ate beef, yeah. I did not wear. Oh my God! I did not wear a mask outside. Ay. Having access to the internet. So that's kind of the idea. So like the probe here is to really help us to think about these possibilities and try to bring up some concepts. So like I would like to, like some people, I sent an email asking for these references, and like some people sent me theirs. And also I was part of the talk in the big Zoom with the World Futures Days today, and like one thing that was said that I found like interesting was like driving can become a crime in the future, and then like what I want to do with this session, like we could like just put like something like this out there, and then start thinking what would be the first consequence for something like that becoming a crime, and then like what are the consequences, maybe like second level consequence for those familiar with the futures wheel. That's how it works. It's basically a futures wheel is basically a mind map where you make you number the consequence of this main vision, and then what is the consequence of the consequences, and we try to document that. So I would like to invite someone to share like a crime, let's say, so something that we do that is normal today, but might become a crime in the future. I would just prefer if someone could speak now that is not a white man from the global north. That would be cool if you could speak, and it would be nice if you were not a man from the global north and white.
But if you can't change that, that's fine as well.
That's my crime.
So anyone want to share?
What's the question again?
Anything, something, so you could share something that is normal today, but will become a crime in the future, that could become a crime in the future. For example, I can just give an example because I think that is very teaching. For example, something that is normal today is to have pets. People have dogs, cats, and they are happy with them. But maybe we start to consider that like something similar to slavery, and having pets might become a crime, because we would see animals as having more rights than we judge them to have nowadays, and therefore having a dog or having a cat would be considered like a crime. So like you are taking their life away just so can adore you and like.
Yeah. I was just thinking that, many of my friends, they in the chat box, they confess to some of the crimes they did today. Some of this might actually come back to haunt them later. So that could be a crime tomorrow. It could come back to haunt them. You did this and you confessed this on so-and-so, and it was streaming on so-and-so. We saw you do that. Might come back to haunt them tomorrow.
Yeah, that's true. If I expect that you are not living, so if you're confessing a crime online, I expect you to not be living in a country where the local laws can take you right now. That would be wise. Otherwise, we'll be on the internet. The confession would be on the internet. So anyone want to share? Maybe one of the ladies in the room?
I can share.
Yeah, please.
I was thinking, and I know someone picked up on this as well in the chat, drinking water from a plastic bottle and having single-use plastics. That would be considered normal now, but fingers crossed it is a crime in the future.
Yes, I mentioned that, and actually, it's a sprinkled water from natural resources places here in Mexico, and it's a plastic bottle, so it was 2 crimes in one.
That's a good one. So like we are talking about not just drinking water, but like anything that is in single-use plastic package. So like what is a crime is to use. So would say. So can we assume, so if you're saying that is a crime to use, is it not a crime, like would not be a crime to manufacture them? But so maybe that could be a law that comes in the middle. So not using, so first, just suggestion, like, and anyone could come with another consequence, but like the first consequence could be that we need alternatives to single use. So it might be refills. So, for example, following the advice of Michelle, I got myself a glass bottle for my water instead of a plastic one, for example. So that, like, instead of having single use, we need to be going to the side of more durable, reusable. What else would be a consequence? So I'm adding here, like, so yeah, reusable package and refills would grow as a market, or you would have to sell things like in books, maybe. What else could be a consequence from this? Don't be shy, people.
Galdino, where are you writing all of this? Is it in chat? Is this in chat? Were you writing?
I'm documenting it. I can share the screen, but like I would prefer if you guys turn on your cameras actually, so we can see each other and it's more like a conversation, and I'll be only taking notes somewhere else would be cool, and then we can see each other.
I switched off a camera by accident just now. If you had your camera switched off, that was me.
Okay.
Yeah, it might become a crime to switch off your camera during Zoom. Who knows? You might be guilty of that.
Yeah, who knows? So what would be a consequence of like having this enforced? What do you think? I will name someone. If you don't jump in. So I'll name Claudia Show. So do you think about what be a possible consequence of this? So like right now, we are in the year, let's say 2030, and it's a crime to use anything coming from to consume anything coming from single-use plastics. So we can assume that the industry is trying to adapt, and that is like already some sort of crime or felony. So what would be another consequence of that universe? And you can open the mic and share.
More services than products. Instead of buy things, we want to share things.
What else? Anyone?
Can you ask the question again?
So we're discussing future crimes. So like things, the concept is we have a look at what is normal today that might become a crime in the future, and what would be the consequences of that. And that's like what we are doing right now. So like right now is normal to just drink water out of a plastic bottle. And the plastic that was under the ground for millions of years, they used to be like a dinosaur's head, is now a plastic bottle. And for like a flick of a second from those atoms perspectives, it becomes a bottle, is filled with water, put in a supermarket, you buy it, you drink it, and you throw it out, and it will become, for another million years or millions of years, a piece of trash in the ocean. So doing this will be a crime. Just buying something from a single-use plastic. What is the consequence of that?
So could your like consumption or your carbon footprint become part of your criminal record, hypothetically?
I like that.
Buying new clothes when you have the chance to buy second-hand clothes.
Sorry, Salom, can you come again?
Buying new clothes when you can reuse or buy second-hand clothes.
Okay. So buying new clothes, like, so you have some sort of limit. So we're seeing some sort of limitations to consumption. So like we would have some sort of control that we turn that consumption into a felony of some sort. Does it make sense? Do I understand that correctly?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay.
Yeah, no, I can't, help noticing. I'm sorry, I can't help noticing with so many people with so many diverse backgrounds. Would it be that at some point in time, having a particular background would be a crime? Why don't you have that background on your bag? Because I see a lot of crimes, lots of news coming on. Somebody was doing this activity on Zoom. There was something in the background, some book, some X-rated thing, anything. These sorts of things are also making news. The crimes of the future. They are the crimes of the present, the crimes of the future.
I just want to go back to the consuming controlled, somehow controlled, because it feels like we had that. So I live in Germany, and where like half of the country used to be in the other side of the iron wall, and like consumption was controlled. So maybe we could jump for another thing. So like I heard one cool earlier today, which was driving. So imagine driving becomes a crime. Let's say, for example, because we came to the conclusion that a lot of people are dying in traffic because they are not, like, people don't drive that well, and like we know that machines are, maybe they might not be perfect, but they are better than humans, and being better than a human is not that hard actually in the driving department. So let's say, what would be the like a first consequence of having driving, like sitting on a car on a driving wheel and going around where you control it is a crime now? What is a consequence for that?
Our cognitive part will be atrophied, like, because when you drive, you have to take a look of too many things at a time. So our brain will not have that capacity. And we are starting, and not just by driving, by doing a lot of things that are automatization. It's diminish our cognitive possibilities in the brain.
So as if like driving is kind of always training you in a sense, and then you lose that training. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. What would you do while you are in a car if you're not driving? How would you use that time?
Sleep, read.
Sleep, read.
Better talks.
I imagine there'll be quite a few people looking at their phones.
Yeah.
Spending it pretty idly.
I find it interesting that the depending on your society, the makeup of your society, you know, you look at American society is very much based on the automobiles and private automobile ownership. So, you know, I imagine you'd find a lot of people unnecessarily dying in American society without a sudden disappearance of the automobile. Whereas you look at European society, you're more likely to have, where you already have a strong emphasis on public transport. You're probably going to end up with life, you know, your life expectation remaining fairly consistent, whereas in America you might see a decrease in life expectancy.
Sorry, TD, where are you from? Just to have an idea of your reference for that.
Broadly Europe.
Broadly Europe, I like that. Okay, good. I like this one. Like, so life expectation in Europe, it would keep like more or less the same because the deaths nowadays are not so high. But in the US, they would go up because so many people. I would say in Brazil as well. Brazil has a lot of deaths. If there is like a natural predator for humans, that's the car.
Or the drivers.
Yeah, it reminds me of the old cartoon with Goofy, where he becomes a driver and he gets insane, like behind the wheel. Yeah. So anything else, like what? So driving is a crime now. What is going on?
Local economies will boost. Like, you don't have to move more than 1 or 2 hours in your car, so it has to be more like walking distance or bike distance.
Yeah, so I think it could be similar to the Paris idea of like 15 minutes, right?
Yeah.
I think Paris is trying to implement that.
Yes, in cities like, for example, Mexico City, despite the pandemic, you still make 1 hour, 1 hour and a half to get from one side of the city to the other, the traffic. Yeah. So yeah, that time will reduce.
So again, like with you as well, Abril, what is your reference, or where are you from?
From Mexico City.
Mexico City, yeah. We know our traffic is. I lived in Sao Paulo many years, so yeah, been there, done that, bought the T-shirt. Are we happy with the driving? Any other ideas on what we could do with this extra time, or yeah, please.
I was thinking that if we only go around with self-driven cars, and real estate is getting super expensive, the cars could be the meeting rooms. So we would meet and have social interactions in the cars, always moving around the city, and then we don't need to rent offices or even bars or go anywhere.
So yes, so like they can become like more places, because like we even like talk about in when we research automobiles, that how the car becomes like a mobile home, because like you take a lot of stuff with you, and then in this case, like if you're not driving, it could be like even stronger. So you might be using it like for like to use the time between places to actually have some interactions. That's pretty cool. I like the idea. For me, it fits with the idea of economic growth as well. So like anyone else, or should we have a different topic? Well, how do you feel?
One more. Professional drivers, there's no more job for them.
So we are meaning like taxi drivers, Uber drivers, maybe like the delivery cars as well. Okay. Okay, Omar, do you want to say something? You have your hands up.
Wondering if you would actually mention this in the chat, the impacts of not having a vaccine. I mean, in Pakistan now, they made it compulsory for health workers and government employees that you need to be vaccinated, otherwise there could be repercussions. I don't know how this will be in 10, 15 years from now when people look back at this, pandemic and say, did you get vaccinated or not? Otherwise, we're already talking about, passports and pandemic passports and all. So that could be a possible crime which could have repercussions later as well.
Okay. So we can use something like, so mandatory vaccination. So not vaccinating becomes a crime, which means that like vaccination is mandatory for such and such diseases. So like a mandatory vaccination. That's funny because like in Brazil that actually happens, and some other places. So you have to, maybe it's not a crime, but like to be able to access some rights, like sending your kids to schools and stuff, you need to have them vaccinated, and or to have a passport, you need to show your vaccination details as well. But I like that. So like vaccination enforced by law, and that's kind of what the tinfoil hat people are a little bit afraid of, right? So should be that like a next topic, or what do you think, guys? Don't be shy. Play with me.
Next topic.
Okay, next topic. All right. So let's have a little bit of fun. So get naked in public spaces, which is now forbidden or frowned upon, at least in most places, will be normal and will be like something that anyone can do. So what would be like a first consequence of like allowed nudity? So you can get naked, like in the shopping mall, you can just go around everywhere completely naked. What about that?
Maybe our clothes will be augmented reality and digital generated, and each person will have their own set of digital clothes and animated and everything.
That's a good one. I like that.
Probably biocell skins instead of a microchip in your skin, instead of using to use augmented reality on any other gadget. It should be under our skins.
Okay.
But what would be under the skin? The generated clothes or
chips? Yeah, like chips in our thermos.
with money, identity, everything connected.
So yeah, maybe something like that. So like you can walk naked, but you need to have some sort of digital clothes. So people who are wearing their digital glasses because they don't want to see the naked people cannot see you. Maybe, yeah, I don't even know how to put that into words right now, but you have to allow people to not see you if they don't want to. Maybe that's the deal. It's part of the deal. What else? So like we can get naked anywhere. What is the deal about it?
Skincare products.
Lucky us, we're not in the bus like or in the metro and the subway full of people naked. We are in our cars that are self-driving them around, and yeah, it's a little bit more comfortable to think about that. So yeah, anyone wants to? So we share any other ideas about things that are normal today, that are crimes today that could become normal in the future.
I like what Salome just wrote about traveling physically. I was reading an article about what will happen when we can travel again, that it will deteriorate so much the ecosystem because everyone will want to travel, even domestically or international, that it will be chaos. So probably traveling, it could be a future crime.
So yeah, so
Exactly.
traveling physically.
So,
it
so you are
is.
forced.
That's interesting because sorry, please, Salome.
Sorry. No, yeah, that you're forced probably to do it virtually, just the same as you're working today, and you are just banned or you are unable to move by plane.
Yeah. So yeah, I was just thinking like that is a little bit like a felony right now in Europe. So for example, I have a friend who lives in Nuremberg where I live, and he just went yesterday to Napoli in the south of Italy. And so like apparently you can't do that trip if you don't have like a good family reason or stuff. Nobody stopped him yet, and everything is fine. But like, is that a crime? Is it not a crime? Like, what? It's still in a gray zone, I think, right now. But I see the direction. That's really interesting. I would like to propose another one that just came out like before we start the session, which was like when I said like I was talking about the driving one, and John understood that I was talking about dying. So like, what if like imagine like we have enough technology to upload your brain somewhere, or like putting your consciousness in a different body, and like you're not allowed to die. So to die is illegal, or at least in some contexts, this is like a felony of some sort. So what about that? You like people
I think
dying
it will
is a
be.
crime.
I think it will be
Yes.
exactly the opposite. Today, dying is a big effort, and with assisted death and everything. But if we are immortal. We really will literally have to choose when to die all the time. It will become quite a daily or a normal task for everyone.
Okay.
No, because if we are all immortal, or we all have the opportunity to put our minds into upload our brains, or to just have physical immortality, we will have to choose to die eventually or not. But it could be a normal choice.
Yeah.
Galdino, to jump in, I was thinking about not dying, but the unauthorized termination of your consciousness, because you still owe resources to a various corporate entity that you've sold yourself to, an unnamed corporate entity. So you're not allowed to terminate your consciousness until you repay that debt.
Oh yeah, so like I would just ask you, so like as you have access to to the Notion document we are working on the notes, please like put this jargon, because it's great, it's amazing, like the way you put it. So yeah, so like you can't die unless you pay all your debts or something like this, if I understood. So
actually, building on what John is just saying, I would say that take it one step forward. In some countries, even now, military service is compulsory. So you could say, like, you know, you don't die unless you've served so much hours for some company or some social cause. That might be a crime.
That's heavy. That's a science fiction novel right there. So what else could
actually, I want to ask if there are any attorneys in our group. On this chart that we are writing, can it come back to ever haunt us? Just asking. Is there any attorney over here who could advise on that? Could that be a... Who knows?
Yo, I don't. So to die is illegal. What else could we have around that? Ladies, I was particularly keen to hear what you think about it. Or no, Eleonora, yeah, you have like some of the good ideas. Want to share?
Well, but dying, probably there would be actors and people like playing on social networks, acting as you, for people who really want to die and would like to yeah, commit it as a crime. And some alter egos, fake people.
I feel like when you die, you're downloaded into the mother lode and you become part of the repository of data. And then the nations can use your consciousness for, I don't know, capacity building or some other thing. So you're still part of the universe or the world, and your consciousness is still being used. Could be an algorithm or something.
My God, this idea makes so much sense. Like you die and your conscience is automatically uploaded, and it's used as a data set to train AI or something.
So Microsoft just, I'm sorry, is it okay if I jump in here?
Yeah, please go on.
Microsoft just patented a technology that is basically scanning all of your chats, all your text messages, all of your emails, all of your digital history to create a chat bot around who you used to be. Yeah. Like that's a tech they just started, and they said that they don't want to do it because it's too complicated and the ethics behind it are too fishy. Which, you know, that might be true today, but maybe not later. I think it's actually going to go the other way, though. You know, if the longevity folks have their way and we somehow figure out how to postpone death into regularly our 90s, occasionally into our 120s and 150s, that becomes a huge burden on the capacity of the social network to operate, right? That's a burden on the earth. That's a burden on. So wouldn't it be the other direction where dying is mandatory? That's straight out of Logan's Run, I know, but you know, hopefully the limit is, as I say with gray hair, hopefully the limit is above 30, where it was in Logan's Run, but I think death may be compulsory, or you have to ship out to the asteroids or Mars or something like that. Like there's something else, but I don't think you're going to be able to just have 10 billion, 11 billion, 12 billion, 15 billion people living, working for 150 years on Mother Earth. I don't think that's in our near future. I think there's going to be compulsory death.
Yeah, so I like the idea of compulsory death. under like a certain age or something like that?
More than 30 though. Let's push that.
You want to be alive, right? Oh, that's
totally selfish, right? Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it happens. But yeah, I like the concept of like dying as mandatory. So basically, the crime is to live beyond X amount of years, and then we have like to terminate ourselves by certain age. I like that concept. Just to finish with the where dying is actually the crime. I like that I would like to see what Charlie Brooker has to say about this patent, because Black Mirror have done that way before Microsoft, so they might have like a patent claim on that. And also it already happened. So like there's a Russian artist who did that recently. I can't remember the name, but like his friends just upload all his data to a machine learning system that is a chatbot that is this guy, and they say that it's pretty accurate. So with that too, like I would say that is like not even like the science fiction realm, is already like in a science kind of fact-ish, is already here. Maybe some people are trying to distribute it. For sure is not like the next startup, maybe like a feature that we could see on Microsoft Word. So like you have to log in, and like the company you were working for was just like saving everything you did all this time, and we'll make like some sort of bot that is you, and will clarify questions for training purposes of new employees. So like you no rest for the wicked. You die, but you still work here. Your data is still working here to train people. And I don't want to I want to leave the conversation have, but like it seems like it's already happening with teachers. So many people that are having their classes online right now are watching classes with dead teachers, dead professors, because they just have it recorded before they died, and now they are like a zombie teacher. Yeah, anything else about the dying is a crime part?
So, well, I think that for the storage data and the Black Mirror episode you mentioned in 2015, another British artist, she keep all the text messages and social media of her friend and make that into artificial intelligence, and she the data AI responded as exactly as his friend. So I think that it will be also something, the consequences, it will be about data storage, because it also affect to the CO2, well, the carbon emissions in the world. So that it will be another consequence. How many data you will, for humanity, you can store it without damaging the ecosystems and the carbon emission that it requires to storage all that data.
So yeah,
even mind uploaded people. I was thinking, yeah, if we don't need more people in the world, we just mind upload them instead of killing them. But it's also consuming power.
Yeah, no, it's, and when I think about it, is also would make sense. For example, with this question, why when you see fiction, like the people that are still alive, or like the AI that people can interact, is about famous people, because famous people have all their stuff documented in books and interviews. So you basically, if someone is famous and on the media all the time, you have more material to create like a fake version of them. While if you are a Mr. and Mrs. Nobody, there's basically less of that to make something out of you. But I think the death thing, like we can talk about that somewhere else, because we have some discussions around death, as Caroline knows so well. So like, what else? Like what's we talk a lot about things that are normal today that might become a crime. So do you have something that is like a taboo today, that like we talk about getting naked out there? anything else that could be is a taboo today that in the future will be like, has to be normal because of any reason?
Drugs, the classic about it.
So doing drugs, and it's funny how we divide drugs, right? So like we have even like let's do like John did and be formal about it. So like consciousness or altering substances, the use of these substances will not be a crime anymore. It's funny, I think, if I'm not mistaken, well, some countries are experimenting in different levels, but it's funny that today, like some stuff is prohibited and some stuff is not. Like weed is going through this phase, but alcohol was like both sides of the fence a couple of times, especially in the US, getting famous with like all the mafia and stuff. Made a lot of money for the Italians in the US. But like yeah, so let's say all mind altering substances are legal in some aspect. What would be a consequence of that?
More rehab clinics.
Because because it's legal, people would be using more, therefore needing to fight like their abuse more often. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think in the first moment it will be more like people lose their control and things like this. But after, I think it's gonna get normal, and like the alcoholics we have now and things like this.
Okay. What else would we have in that context?
Well, if people are not allowed to die, probably it would also increase the drug assumptions, just to try to escape the reality they cannot.
Like the TV series Maniac, that they use drugs just to go to another place or to just escape from their reality. I think that that's a very, it's there, like they already put it there in.
Yeah, I might be tripping. I will not reveal what I was using today, but I think there are some data about how actually like some drug consumption went down when they made it legal, because basically like to use drugs is part of like a ritual of passage from being young to being an adult, and a lot of teenagers do it like as a challenging phase thing. So as long as it's not like when it loses this side of like challenging the status quo, is just something people do, a lot of the interest goes down. So that could be something like people actually use less drugs because it's not like it's not sexy anymore. They're gonna do something that is taboo as well, because doing the taboo stuff is what teenagers do, right?
I mean, if we were thinking drugs in a little bit of a broader concept of maybe not the drugs that we know, but really as altering realities, then it could be very well that there are really expensive designer drugs that are making people capable of doing more, working more, sleeping less, all of those things. And then you could have a really big divide in terms of who has the mental capacity of working in such a new world through designer drugs and who isn't capable of buying those. It's almost like the engineering of babies in the future.
Maybe instead of design for people, design babies, we want to design drugs.
Mm-hmm.
you know what really I get really worried when I start thinking about drugs, because I think we're the addiction generation, because we're surrounded by screens constantly, and we have dopamine driven loops every 30 seconds with every WhatsApp message, every tweet, every meeting, every webinar, every whatever. We're the addiction generation. And now, like, I think we are creating the exact environment that is needed in order to then produce a drug that is going to be like completely numbing and is going to disconnect us from reality, and is going to make us easier to control and become productive in a predetermined system that somebody wants to design. And that's really scary to me. It's like a Black Mirror episode that goes completely wrong. So yeah, those are my 2 cents.
Yeah, that sounds like 2020. That's basically what last year was, like a Black Mirror episode that went wrong.
Exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, I like the way we are going. Anyone else want to share like this consciousness altering substances are legal now, and what else is going on in this universe?
Well, sorry. Go on.
No, that just to add what Sebastian just said is that we are the headline generation. Like everything is shots of information, and clonazepam, marijuana, all those kind of drugs are being like handled just like candies nowadays. So you need to go down because of this hype that you have all the time. Then we will need, like this cycle, we will need something else to go up instead of going down. So it will be like this roller coaster of emotions. Like you're down at a moment because all of these shots of information, and then you have to go up in order to feel excited or feel any other emotion. So I think that it would be both.
Yeah, I can empathize with that. Like last year, I lost my stepfather, and I had like a rough year. I know everybody had a rough 2020, but mine was extra. So yeah, I got a divorce, and I lost my stepfather. Yeah, so that was tough. But like I see the world like expecting me to keep functioning. So like people, and I started actually taking some medicine for that. And I was happy to do that, but like how can we start like forcing people into the shapes that society wants them? I think that's faced also by kids, especially kids with some cognitive challenges. So they have to stick to the norm. So like people, maybe people that back in the day would be considered geniuses. Maybe Leonardo da Vinci was like a hyperactive when he was a kid, but he was considered just a kid. We don't know. So if nobody wants to add anything for the drug, like we are 3 minutes on the hour that we had before, but like I have nothing else to do. So like if you guys want to stay, no, I'm kidding. Like of course I have other stuff to do, and those who want to go. But like if you want to hang out and keep talking about this, we can stay for a while. It's just to be mindful of your times.
Just some interesting data. I recently did some research here in Colombia, and the category that increased the most in terms of sales is the category of drugs and pharmaceutics. That's the one that grew the most during this pandemic last year. And I think it's going to grow even more, because I think we're thinking about drugs in terms of something that we put on our bodies and it alters our consciousness. But I think it might be even simpler. Like, I remember many years ago, somebody came up with this audio, I don't know what it was, like these frequencies that supposedly allowed you to get high on a frequency, on something that you heard. And I think things like that are going to start happening more often, either visual things or audiovisual things or audio things that are going to allow us to alter our consciousness. And yeah, we have the data that category grows a lot. So that's pretty intense.
Yeah, like something related to the use of sonic and maybe even like other senses, and we can like create some technology that tap into the senses and alter our consciousness or how our brain works use like the sensors to, so like use like strobe lights or like sonic weapons, like John was saying in the chat. Yeah, that's yeah, I like the way this is going. Any other like drug related stuff? There's one, like you said, Colombia, and I remember, I think in a World Cup, if I'm not mistaken, some players, I can remember from where, maybe from Brazil, they were offered some coca tea, and because of the coke or the substances, like they were take like in the doping test, as if they were using coke, when was actually just the tea. And there was a big discussion on, was it the tea? Was it not? So basically, drinking a tea became a crime because of the way you used to measure this stuff.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to change the way we measure drugs too. I think that's a really good point, because I mean, coca leaf, I had coca leaf this morning and coffee, and I'm pretty sure I'm not high. So yeah, you know, like I think we really have to rethink like the way it, yeah, we measure these things. So yeah.
So who is to say you are too high or too low? So any addition to the, so I would like as I was saying, like Eleonora is one of the people that are with us in the sessions that we are hosting sometimes on the security level. And I would like you, Eleonora, to bring something to the table. So what would be the topic around the subject that you would like to discuss?
So we left the crimes perspective and possible crimes for the futures, let's say. Well, I've seen some, well, if I have to summarize what the discussion was about, the philology that I see is the fact that we over-exploit, over-expect, like we are over-judged by our societies, and we're not so free to auto-determine who we are. So probably a connection, like for example, there was also a proposal, the crime of individualism, and also the fact of being not respectful for what is around. So maybe something which is connected to crimes, but also the individual level. So okay. how expectations and society also drives crime, and like the divide between possibilities among people.
So yeah, just to get like a little bit sharper, so like we can discuss. So like basically, because like social expectations are built by people one by one. Let's say there's no such thing as society. Society doesn't knock on your door and say you have to do this or that. Is your mom, is your grandfather, is like your teacher, someone like people around you start like having that idea, and we as society we function almost like a hive mind, like we are talking before, something that is like there's no, basically there's no society. There are people making decisions and copying each other and like moving in one direction or another. So maybe there would be more control on that. Could that be it, or how would you express this? So like, because what I hear is that like society is forcing humans to live in a way or in different ways that are not natural for us, and we feel compelled to go in that direction. But who is actually forcing us? How does this forcing happen?
There is this concept of hyper objects. Maybe society this could be considered one of the. I'm not so familiar with the concept. But,
yeah. So yeah, I heard about hyper objects. So anyone would like to jump and clarify us on hyper objects? No one? Okay, I can grab that. So hyper objects are, the idea is like things that are super big and super soft in a sense. So like you can't grab it, they exist we can talk about them, we can recognize their existence, but like we can't actually grab them. They are around. So they are concepts even, but they exist. So like they are almost like a force. I would risk saying like a force of nature. So society could be one of these, and how. But I'll back a little bit to the not just crime, but like felony or like wrong things that we do. So how is like this hyper object forcing us in one direction or the other?
Thinking about what we were talking about, drugs and spots, we could go in the third direction that triangulates it all and talk about gender also, I think, which hormones, and to take hormones as a design measure, let's say. I think this will become less and less of a crime and more acceptable.
Yeah.
And the dissolution of gender, or
I was just like, I'm still not sure if I got what Eleonora was proposing. I was trying to grasp it, but like in the end, I don't think I quite got it. Like in a Sharpie, in a sharp way. Want to go again? I'm sorry, like that's myself. Like I'm not.
No, maybe I haven't been clear, but also it was like something like a hot comment to all this rich conversation that we had. So I think that also the relation between future and crimes has a really important individual dimension. So also when speaking about, for example, the social and the society expectations that we have, probably society is not defined in a universal and unique way, but also the people who are entering you, your experiences, your background, your local, let's say, I don't know, learning experience have determined the realization, the identification of what is outside you. And that is why I'm really keen on exploring more about the links between future thinking, futures literacy, and what are the assumptions leading us to determine what are the things that should be bad, like from a universal point of view. So in a way, with the law declaring that this is legitimate and this is not, and what is our kind of box of action. I don't know if it's clear or not.
Yeah, so like if I get where you're going, is more like it's like, so like what we call crimes are stuff that we socially decide that is a big no. No. Ay. You can't do that. So that when we decide as a society that something is a big no, we turn that into a crime. Some places have that more. Like why? Like coming back to the first joke, or one of the easy jokes with this, which is like chewing gum. Why is it that they made it a crime to chew gum in Singapore? Maybe someone from Singapore in the room, or that is familiar with the place, want to clarify that? I'm looking at you, John. Yeah, maybe if you have the intel.
I'm not from there, but I have spent a lot of time there. Marcella lives there. I don't want to put her on the spot.
Okay.
Well, let's be honest, Singapore prides itself on being clean, and chewing gum goes fundamentally against that, since, it's bad on the street. So why not make it illegal? It just saves money and, makes it a clean place.
But yeah, if I'm not mistaken, that was like back in the day, but it goes back to I think is pretty much linked to this idea. It is a big deal with Singapore, as far as I know, which is the common good is more important than the personal good. if I'm not wrong, like that's kind of a social guideline, which is similar, to be honest, is similar to the guidelines in China. That's a little bit, at least from my perspective, as a foreigner, completely foreigner. I've never been to China, but what I see is that, like, as ultimately is a place that first you care about the collective, and then you care about the individual. While, for example, places like the US, the individual comes first, and then you think about the collective. And maybe, like, if you are seeing, I'm already like maybe doing like a futures view exercise here, but like thinking about it, if we're seeing a global shift from, and this could be huge. So if you're seeing a global shift in philosophy and general values from US value of individual first, society later, to a more South Asian concept of society first, individual later, that could be a shift, like in the global philosophy of how doing everything, like how to deal with all this stuff. So all the crimes, or all the laws and all the social rules could be instead of like being made to protect the individual property, the right to have a gun, to have a gun and to shoot anyone that comes in my yard. Yeah, that was racist, I guess, against some states in the States. But so that could be a shift. I do like where this is going. Anyone else want to add an idea, or like some let's say final thought, because then we can go like closing the conversation.
I'll just add quickly. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I can go after.
I just had a mini quip. So the town where I went to university in the metro Atlanta area actually had a law from the, I think, 1800s that required you to own a gun if you lived within the city limits.
Wow.
Requires.
Yeah, required.
Luma?
That's an interesting proposition. Yeah, no, I was just going to share, because I was thinking of kind of connecting the dots between a lot of the different themes that came up on this in this session. And you know, there's this thing about consciousness and whether we're actually making the decisions that we make. And what does that mean when we're thinking about crime or regulation around crime? If we don't necessarily have the autonomy to make these decisions, are prison systems, for example, useful forms of kind of community safety rather than punishment? And I just thought that was an interesting parallel between this idea of what we're capable of, our mental health, our consciousness, the choices that we make as they are judged by regulation and identified as crime.
Yeah, if you do something because like if you do something that you are not really in control, or even like being conscious about it, like how much you can be blamed for that. Is that the point, maybe?
Yeah, and that we need systems of accountability, and that's why we do regulate. But is the framing of it being a crime too harsh, perhaps, and it being more of a behavior that we don't necessarily we can't condone in society because it makes us unsafe? It becomes semantics to a certain extent, but it's important because this idea of right and wrong versus you know, a lot more of a spectrum of different types of actions. I mean, just that exercise that we did at the beginning between, you know, what did you do today that is considered a crime somewhere else, and like what are you doing today that later might become a crime, is an indication of how arbitrary almost like the framing of a crime is. These are behaviors and they need to be regulated. Is contextualizing it as a crime useful?
Yeah, on that, like the way, like I think Leonardo, when she wrote me an email, was also maybe touching this. So crimes are, for the world that we live today, a crime is by definition bound to a country. Do we have like, how is that, what is the state of international law? How we decide what is an international crime and what is not? And I'm sitting in Nuremberg, Germany, so I should know more about this, because like that was the first international tribunal. But like maybe John or Marcy has like another insight on this.
Well, I think even just the, sorry, before just the idea, we talked about this a little bit in the last session around tech and culture, but the fact that regulation can no longer necessarily be on a national level, that companies like Facebook are creating their own regulatory committees that are global and, you know, have representatives from around the world. And what does that mean? And how do you uphold those regulations in a global sense? And how do they impact crime on a local or on a national perspective? I mean,
and who voted those guys in? Who is holding them accountable?
They were invited.
Yeah, no, I love the question, and I do agree. So like in a sense, Twitter, that's super funny. Like, so like Twitter rules of engagement could have done like more for global peace and the peace of mind of people from US and abroad than they have done when they chose to let Trump lose with his bullshit machine.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that we have tech companies and their terms of service are really an indication of community safety and societal safety is problematic at this stage, right? Like, how do we define crime when it's no longer under the parameters of national authority?
We call it going against the user guidelines.
There are these weird rules that have come up, like, so technically if you're in international waters, you're subject to the laws of the country whose flag of the ship that you're on. So like, they're all like, if you think about that, that's kind of crazy, right? I mean, the whole idea of international waters and like all of these kinds of rules. And I think also space has certain rules, like outer space, right? Relative, that are really similar to like international waters and stuff like that. But like, you know, the kind of arbitrariness of maritime boundaries, and of course, countries still fighting it. You know, Russia put a flag on the bottom of the Arctic, right? So like the claiming of space and like the spatiality of crime is, I think, super fascinating.
Yeah, and then I mean it's so interrelated with this idea of culture as well. Like when you think about that, like does that mean that the Arctic is Russian now? And you know, what implications are there? And even when in our explorations of space, you know, people, you know, last month the UAE announced that Arabs have reached Mars, but they didn't really reach Mars. They orbited in Mars, or they started orbiting around Mars. Plus, the actual spaceship was not built in the UAE, nor did it take off from the UAE. It was only using UAE funding to actually get this spaceship launched to Mars. So, how do we even identify what that means? Like, what does it? What kind of meaning does that bring to the experience?
Well, as a Brazilian, I have a suggestion, because our history is about that. So like back in the day, you just change the kind of ships we're talking about. Back in the day, they were like going through the ocean, fighting new land, claiming it, and then fighting to see who owned it. In the northeast of Brazil, like like Brazil was not like given to the Portuguese; they took it, and like the people from the Dutch were trying to take it. Funny enough, the first ever Jewish community, so like a synagogue, the first synagogue of Americas, is in Recife, northeast of Brazil, and the people who were kicked out from there, the Dutch Jewish that were kicked out from there, it started like this small city that like is not so well known today, called Manhattan. So yeah, so like I think it could be compared to like in the sense of like lands or countries or entities, because like countries are one type of entity, or like the nation state is one type of player that didn't exist before. So the nation state is not like something that comes from the nature, so it's something that we created. Maybe what we call corporations nowadays becomes another type of something
Future
that
of
could be
state.
compared. What?
The future of state is corporations are the future of state. Actually, Peter said something really interesting in the chat, that Elon Musk has indicated that his Mars colony will set up its own laws independent of what Earth space law might say. And that's speaking to your point of this idea of colonization as a form of control, I guess, I don't know, or ownership.
Yeah, and who can say, especially people from US, what can they say against something like that from Elon Musk when they live in a land that did precisely that? They said like, fuck off the British, like we make our laws now, like, and like they have some tea, please. And that's as far as my US history goes.
Well, thank you. This has been great.
Yeah, like I think we are hitting it. Like I want to thank you everybody that is here, like to the discussion. This might be something that we will host more often, maybe like with some even more specific topics to discuss, like what is taboo, what is not, or what is a crime, what is not. We also like I think you can, if you have my name, you can easily find my email around, or add me on LinkedIn, or John, and talk to us if you are interested on being part of this secret society of people discussing the global security. We host sessions on a regular basis, and yeah, like would be cool. Like if you are into that, let us know. Mariana just opened her camera. I was thinking if she wanted to add something, or anyone who wants to make like final comments. No, you can. Yeah, you look pretty. I just want to recognize. I was thinking that you wanted to say something. So any last words? I hope that's not your last words. Yeah, John or Marcy.
Kudos to Galdino for facilitating what was a dynamic conversation, and thanks again everybody for checking it out. Yeah, look forward to doing more. And I don't know, Galdino, there was one background that you had that felt like a crime. So I don't know, we're gonna talk. But some they were good, but some of them was like, wow, dude, it was like that feels like a crime.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, thank you everyone for joining us, and I really hope we get to push this conversation further in the next sessions.
Thanks very much for a wonderful session.
Thanks a lot.
See you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you very much. That was a great session. Look
Thank
forward to more such sessions. Bye.
Bye. And I will stop. And